Good morning. I am up sharing some stuff that I'm working on this week. I've been doing some writing this week, quite a bit of writing, but a lot of reading also. And a lot of my focus right now is on creating community. I retired so I could do all the stuff I really wanted to do that I didn't have time to do while being in like regular life. And part of developing community has been like, how do you do that? How do we do that in a different way? And so part of that is the lane that I spend most of my time in, gratefully, joyfully. And in that, I'm always looking for other tools. I'm looking for tools on how we can do community better. And the body of work that I have worked on for about 20 years has been called social tech. What are the tools that help us be socially sustainable? We have a toolbox of those things. And I'm always looking for other examples from life of people that have dared look outside of the box to figure out how we began fixing what we see that's wrong in community, even as community is still kind of doing this death spiral in the way that we knew it. The old paradigm that's dying is fighting to survive, and it's the people who are saying, if we look at things a little bit differently, maybe if we change our perspective, maybe we could begin finding better solutions. And I like finding these people. They're the shifters, the paradigm shifters. It's kind of like Tesla. Like, what would have happened if 100 plus years ago now, Tesla hadn't been blackballed, over some BS, and money and power. What would have happened if we had taken those ideas? Because now we're trying to struggle and go back and recreate it, and we realize that might have been a good path. It might have been a good path for us to figure out how to do things a little bit better without poisoning the environment and things like that. And so I'm on the look all the time for these shifters in our society. And when I find them, it's like, are they saying the same things? Are they helping us in ways that we need to go and use that help? And one of these people that I came across, one of the meeting with some of my friends over in the UK, and he says, do you know about the 6 thinking hats? And I was like, no, I don't know anything about that. He says, check it out. It's going to bless you. It's right up your alley. And so I started reading. I started watching some YouTube videos. I'm in Ecuador and getting stuff like, you can't just jump up on Amazon and order a book in English and think it's going to get here in 2 days. Like, it may be weeks later. It may cost you a whole lot to ship it. So I went online and said, let me start with some videos. Let me see if this is something I want to invest in. And I started watching videos of Edward de Bono's thinking course. And part of what he started saying was like, this dude's saying something to me. He says part of our problem is not the issues we see. Part of our problem is we don't know how to think well. And he started giving some history on how we think. Some things that I learned. I'm a seminarian. I know about religion and church, and I've studied it. I've studied the Greek. I've studied the Hebrew. I've gone through formal education in some of these areas. But he was saying back in the day, back in the day, churches controlled not only religion, but education. And if you understand the motives, they had a certain set of facts that they wanted you to believe in. They didn't want you to question it. They didn't want you to think creatively, think outside that box. They wanted you to believe like they did. And so if you look at the order of thinking, if you look at the philosophy, what they did was they taught logic. They taught logic. They taught reason. They taught how to have an argument, how to prove something that you've already determined is fact. And what they have done is we've got a very good thinking system that helps us do that. Just prove what someone already says is proof. Have an argument. But what happened was the part of thinking that lets you be creative in finding solutions. We haven't really practiced that at all, because that's part of the problems that they're seeing in society. We can't think real good. We can't think of alternative solutions, not to our behavior, not to how we do in life. We can't think that way. And so this guy, I think Edward de Bono was like 60s. He started saying, well, what if we went back and relearned how to think? Could we learn how to think that would bring back the side of our brain that we need to function well and balance out our thinking so that we do have the capacity to creatively find solutions in life, like for real, like you, me, we're sitting down on this committee together or developing this business or this program. Can we sit down and have creative ideas? Would be a great thing for businesses. How do you get your people to think creatively? You need creative thinkers to think of innovation. If what's working for you is not good enough and you want to have innovative, you have to have people that can think better. And what he began to say, whether you believe it or not, what he began to show was if we showed people how to think better, they actually started thinking better. They actually started being more innovative and being more creative. They actually started resolving some things in business world. And so over the years, this man teaches governments, he teaches institutions about thinking. The exciting part was that this information came to me from people who have been passionate about how we fix community for years. I call it the mad social scientist think tank. There are these people that 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago said, society's all right, it's meeting some of our needs, but we probably need to start working on some solutions to some things that are beginning to not work so well. They're the social tinkerers that begin to say, how are we going to fix it? There's a new word that I came across this week. They are solutionists. They're the people in society that figure out solutions. And if one of the problems in society is we don't know how to think well, don't you think we need to be finding solutions on how to think? But part of this is these are people that have already understood that, yes, we need roofs over heads. We need housing and food and economic systems that make people feel safe and secure, or at least reasonably. But in order for us to even do that, we got to help people heal. It's our dysfunction. It's us not being able to work together. It's us not being able to resolve conflicts that breaks down community. I don't care how you define community. If you think about what you think of as community, what usually messes it up? Your club, if you got a church, your organization, what usually messes it up? It's people. We dysfunctional. We stop being able to work well with each other, and that's a problem. Try to get people that share different values. Even if we have some values alike, getting people together and being able to share that is a problem. We prove that on a major scale when leaders of countries can't sit down and resolve issues. That's a thinking problem. If you have a problem and the only thing you can do is destroy, and you think that's going to solve the problem, we have a thinking issue. If you can't think outside of the box, if you can't come up with creative, innovative solutions to help resolve conflict in ways that work for everybody, win-win, then we have a problem. And what we're seeing is the escalation of that lack of capacity. If we could solve our problems, wouldn't we solve them? And if we're not solving them, does that point to our capacity? We don't have the capacity to resolve things in ways that are peaceful or beneficial to the whole. And so what we're seeing, even on the large scale, on the global scale, on the nation-to-nation scale, is people who do not have the capacity to work together in ways that are peaceful, in ways that can get us to a resolution. Everybody don't get your way all the time, but can we get to resolution? And we're seeing in society, the old paradigm, the paradigm that's dying, we're seeing a lack of capacity in those areas. So I was excited with these people who I know are working on how do we fix community on all the levels. I'm talking about these are systems thinkers. These are people that are looking at how do we change society, the system of society, and all the systems in place, even knowing that it's a whole lot of moving parts. How do we do that? And so they know that my lane is the people part. My lane has been the roof overhead, food on the table, and the collective economics. But part of why I retired was not enough work is on the people part, the healing part. And if we know how to do all the other stuff, which we do, we can do housing. We can do affordable housing. We can do food. I personally know 15 different ways we can do food. Big scale, small scale. 1/10 of an acre is all you need. That's 4,400 square feet is all you need to be sustainable for you and your family. It's talking about food and some know-how. 1/10 of an acre is a very, very small piece of land. If you think of square footage, a little over 4,000 square foot. That's a decent sized house, but that's the amount of ground space you need to be fully sustainable. Do you really want your freedom? If that's all it takes to be free, Talking about food. There's some other factors, but if you just wanted to be free on the food tip, tenth of an acre is all it needs. And really, with technology now, ag tech, you don't even need that much. 10-foot by 10-foot garden using some of the intensive growing methods, square foot gardening. There's a few other spin methods. Intensive growing, 10 by 10, you could just about be food sustainable. I've personally played in some of these areas. I know what it takes to be food sustainable. It takes 9 weeks of ramp up time. Not much diversity, but if you're talking about bare bones, what's the least you need to do to be food sustainable? It takes you 9 weeks and literally 10 square feet. Be food sustainable. And so when we start talking about solutions to community, do we really want them? And can we begin finding solutions in these different areas? And that really is my work. We know how to do food. I don't care what they tell you about the food. Can you do it the same way that we've been doing it? Again, that's that thinking out of the box. If you keep thinking in that pattern, it's a logic that's only going to be used to prove the things that we're already doing. Well, they don't work. So throw that logic away. Increase the capacity to think outside the box and think in ways that are innovative and creative. Turn those creative juices back on. How could I feed myself where I have control? And it fixes the problems that I know are out there and that are real. If you don't know what's going on in the food industry, and this is from a retired farmer, I retired from farming, so this is not just off the side of my head. It's as bad as you think, but it's worse than that. Whatever you think, you don't have a clue about how bad it really is. You know, if you think it's bad, it's worse. It's worse. And so part of that is, how do we begin making changes in community? And part of it is it starts with us. And if what Edward de Bono in his Six Thinking Hats says is true, then part of the problem is our thinking is dysfunctional. Our thinking is part of the problem. We can't get enough perspective. It's kind of like, if my perspective is off to begin with, thinking that I'm going to ever see things aligned is not logical. First, you got to straighten out the thinking. You got to start thinking differently. If your thinking is the problem, you can't keep thinking this way. Well, thinking is the problem, but I just keep thinking this way. It's kind of that crazy hamster wheel thing. What do they say? It's insanity if you keep doing the same thing, expecting something different to happen each time you do it. It's kind of that same thing, but we go through life that way because we don't know no difference. And I challenge, we have the information, we have the hidden in plain sight tools to help us get off of this hamster wheel. But when I began looking at Edward de Bono's stuff, because I believe the truth is in all kind of places. If nature is your Bible, you can go find it out there. If music is your Bible, you can find the truth there. If religion, I'm indifferent, because if religion is your thing, if Christianity is your thing, the truth is there too. Now, finding the truth may cause you to have to get out of that box because the box doesn't fit you anymore. But I think you can get there with that. There's so many other things, pop culture. There's some movies that could be the truth for you to find the solutions that you need. But when I found his work, I was like, I like the people that hone in. Don't give me no sugarcoating. What's the quickest, fastest way we can get straight to the core and fix some stuff, you know? That's just from I like being efficient with my time, with my energy. And so this guy, he says, okay, you don't have to know a whole lot. Let me just give you a picture. Let me give you 6 hats. Each one's got a different color. There's a blue, white, red, black, yellow, green hat. Got that? Everybody says, okay, got the hats. Now, we're going to start with the blue one, he says. The blue one is you got to have a system. How are we going to be thinking? Do we have a system for how to think? And I was like, okay, that's kind of like a no-brainer. Of course you need a system. Then I was like, that ain't a no-brainer. That ain't a no-brainer. Ask somebody how they think. You've got a conflict going on in your mind. How are you going to think about that? People will say, oh, what are you talking about? What do you mean, how am I going to think about it? I just think about it. No. How? What are you going to think about? How are you going to process this? There's some people that actually think about thinking. I'm one of those. Edward de Bono was one of those people who thinks about thinking. And so he said, no, that ain't good enough. Is that working? That's what everybody's doing. I don't know how I think. I just be thinking. It just be random. Well, how's that working for us? For real. Like, look around. If that were working, if that were good enough to get us to solutions on how we fix community, how we fix society, it would be working. And right now, if you look around, our thinking has got us exactly where we are. No judgment, but like the reality. The way that we have thought, the things that we have done as a result of those thoughts has gotten us where we are. And he says, you got to have a plan for how you're going to think. If you want to do this efficiently. Now, you can do whatever you want to. If it's working for you, keep doing it. I'm a firm believer. Use what works for you. But then he says, if you really want to process in a way that helps us create innovative solutions. And he was talking to a business group. I'm talking on a social platform because I think it transfers. He said the first thing you have to do is you have to be able to sort the facts out. Focusing on the facts. I want you to think about this as you have, think of any conflict you've had. And if you had first stopped to say, what are the facts? What did this person say to me? Not what I think they say, not what I think they mean. What did they actually say? What actually happened? What's the information? And that, I realized, was part of the first problem I saw with change. We can't talk about the facts so easily. We get it all jumbled up because we're already in processing mode. This is why our stuff stays stuck in us. We stay traumatized with our stuff because we aren't processing it. The very first thing is stop with the facts. She looked at me because she don't even like me. No. What are the facts? She looked at me. Did she? Do you really know if she was looking at you or she was looking at something behind you and you just happened to be in the way and you got triggered by that because you thought that she was thinking all these things that she wasn't even thinking about you about? What are the facts? And once you do that, facts are facts. You should be able to verify them because somebody else independently verified this as fact. If they can't, it ain't probably fact. It's probably your speculation. You're trying to read somebody else's mind. It's probably some other analysis or judgment that's taking place. And once you've done that, you've got the facts identified. Now, if this is a conflict you're having with someone else, not just yourself, you should be able to come to some agreement, even if your facts are from different perspectives. I saw the blue car go by thinking it was you. And then you say, I was driving on the other side of town, but I saw a blue car that looks like yours. Both of those things would be happening at the same time. And so even if our perspectives are different, we should be able to come to an agreement of what the facts are. He says, start there. White hat. That's what he calls it. I call it step one in our healing process. And then the next thing that I group as facts also are your emotions. They may not be true, but they're fact. If you felt whatever some kind of way it was that you felt, angry, happy, sad, anxious, that is fact. There is no one that can tell you, no, you don't feel like that. If you're being honest with yourself, that's fact. There's no one that can dispute that. Now, your fact may not be truth. You looked at me and disrespected me. No. I looked your direction. And you felt disrespected. You feeling disrespected is true. But if you look at the facts, what did I do that disrespected you? Nothing. You didn't even say nothing to me. Then how did I disrespect you? So you feeling disrespected is true. That's your fact. But I may not have actually disrespected you. If you're in a situation with me and you feel disrespected and I haven't disrespected you, chances are that feeling of disrespect is a lingering trace of something else that's happened in the past. It's just been brought up. People talk about being triggered and don't really explain what that means. If I'm in a situation with you and you're acting in a way that's loving towards me and yet I feel a negative way, I feel something. Disrespected, that one comes up a lot for people. If that is what I'm feeling and I look at the facts and you haven't done anything to disrespect me or trigger me to feel disrespected, then that's my stuff. Me feeling disrespected ain't got nothing to do with that person interacting with me. That's my stuff. That's my garbage from somewhere in the past. Now, I have to decide if I want to go back there and find it and heal it. But if I act in a way now to a situation that's not currently disrespecting me, but yet I feel disrespected, that's some of my old stuff being pulled up. And I have a choice whether I'm going to deal with that or not. But if I can begin to separate out the facts, and I can get to that point first of saying what actually happened, then I get to the point of expressing those emotions, because that's a problem right now in society. Emotional intelligence is one of the buzzwords that's swirling without a whole lot of definition. For me, the explanation for me, this is Lorana's paraphrase. Emotional intelligence is the ability to communicate what I'm thinking and feeling outside of my head to somebody else. Can I tell you what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking? And one of the ways that we see that being kind of at an all-time low right now is I hear somebody say, I feel some kind of way. I feel some kind of way would be equivalent of an intelligence of just above zero. I'm feeling it. My emotions are doing their job. I'm feeling something that's uncomfortable, but I can't even put words to it. I can't even explain to you what I'm feeling because it's so jumbled right now. And part of that becomes a problem because if you can't tell me what you're thinking and feeling, this is interpersonal relationship stuff. If you and I are interacting and something's going on that's upsetting you, something about our interaction is causing you some distress, and you can't tell me what's going on, there's only two options. Either I got to read your mind, or we don't have the ability to communicate to be able to resolve the issue. Now, we can fight and fuss, but if I don't know what's going on with you, and I'm interested in finding out, I'm interested in getting to resolution, where we both can leave this situation feeling good, or at least feeling okay, and you can't communicate, then you got to decide, am I willing to try to read your mind or speculate what you're thinking? And oftentimes, right then, communication, the ability for us to be in the same space together, starts breaking down. I'm not responsible for reading your mind. How possible is that? I don't even have the tools to be able to read your mind. That ain't my gifts. And so community breaks down there. And so he says, first thing you got to do is get to the facts and get to the emotions. Once you're processing that, this is not stuffing them. This is acknowledging if you're angry, be angry. Now, that doesn't give you the right to do stuff to folks because you're angry. But it gives you the right to be angry. How long? Be angry as long as you need to be angry. Because if you fail to process those emotions, you start lying to yourself. I'm not really angry. Yes, you are. And part of what Jesse Collins in his work with trauma said was anytime you violate your values, you are creating the abuse for yourself. If you believe lying is a bad thing and you lie to yourself, you are the perpetrator of abuse right then and there. Small trauma, maybe, sometimes big. But you are the one that's creating the damage in your life. And so part of this is, are you committed to being honest? Because you can't heal if you won't be honest. But once you've had time to let those emotions do their thing, emotions are just that. Check your values. Do you have a value system that says emotions are bad? Expressing your emotions is bad, because some people do. I find it much more in men. I find it much more in the black men that I interact with. I'm not supposed to be showing my emotions. I definitely ain't supposed to be crying. That's a value system. Do you really feel like crying? Yeah. Is that your truth? Is that true? So for you to do something that's not true, that's the potential for trauma in your life. Feeling your emotions. Some people have a judgment that they place on emotions. Emotions in and of themselves are bad. I'm not a man if I feel sad. I'm not a man if I feel afraid or hurt. And so what we do is we pretend. One of my favorite authors, Paul Laurence Dunbar, says we wear the mask. This was 100 plus years ago. They were wearing masks back then. We wear the mask that grins and lies. We put this cover on us and we pretend to be something that we're not. Every time we do that, it creates trauma for us. We're the perpetrators. And so it's first honoring that, because when we don't do that, we mess up the process. We create a long-term trauma. This is farm wisdom. I'm a farmer. I'm a retired farmer. If weeds get planted in your garden, you can go chop the top of those weeds off, but those roots are still there. If you don't go get all those roots out, that weed will come back and run the risk of choking out the things that you want to grow in your garden. Same thing in life. Little seed of trauma, one little incident, but that incident grows. You have an incident and it impacts you in a way that's negative, and if you don't resolve it, it grows bigger. It starts impacting your life, and 30 years later, that thing that happened on the playground is still a part of what makes you behave in ways that you know ain't right. But you do it almost like a knee-jerk trigger reaction, your behavior. You know, it's somebody look at them wrong, and all of a sudden you're ready to fight. Well, nobody offering to fight, but because of some insecurity that may have started years ago and be totally unrelated, your behavior, your life is impacted by this thing. So this thing that happened 30 years ago is still having control of your life, still impacting your life. We don't let it process. And sometimes we don't know how. And part of what DeBono was saying was we don't even know how to think appropriately to try to undo it. Same thing Jesse Collins said. If you think in a different way, we can help you get fixed. Got to change your box though. That container doesn't serve you anymore. And so then he says, once you do that, now we can start processing. You know the truth now. And you dealt with your emotions. Let that flow. Now we're ready to have the logical conversation. Now it's time to look at logic. Now it's time to do the critical analysis to identify the areas that have caused you some conflict. And Jesse Collins would say, now you take and look at the values of the situation. What were the values of the person you interacted with? What were the values that you expressed? What were the values and expectations that were misaligned? In this interaction, which things aligned with my values and which things conflicted with my values? We hear those words, was it in alignment? And we don't really understand how to use that information for our life to help us get unstuck. And so part of these systems say, next you have to go look at trauma happens. Anytime something happens in your life that is a mismatch for your values. I expect people to deal with me respectfully. And then somebody come and don't deal with you in a way that you feel is respectful. Talk to you all sideways, look at you sideways, treat you kind of bad. That doesn't align with my values. Guess what? That's the ground zero of trauma. Now, is it a big trauma? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it's your kinfolk. They're supposed to love me, and then they act this way towards me. Trauma. But once we get past the emotion, the facts and the emotions part of it, in Edward Bono's talk, it was the white hat and the red hat. We get to the black and yellow hat. Black and yellow, black and yellow. And that's the analysis part. In the healing modality that I work with, let's look. What did you do in this situation that lined up with my values? What did you do that went against my values? And then the hard part sometimes is, let me look at me. In this situation, what did I do that aligned with my values? What are the things I did and say, no, I stand on this. I stand on this. I believe this is the way I'm supposed to interact in this situation. And what are the things that I did that did not match up with my values? Because once we began to look at that, we began to get to the core of undoing the damage in our life and making us much more capable of being in community together with individuals. And that's what my work is about, building community. Physical communities, we're working on some intentional community builds here in Ecuador. And globally, we've got 2 projects that we're looking at now. One's here in Ecuador and one's in the United States. But we're talking about change. We're talking about what helps us be able to interact and work together. Because I just tell you personally, I can't fix stuff by myself. I mean, there's things I can fix. When we're talking about society, I can't fix society by myself. I can't fix community by myself, because community can't be fixed unless you're doing it in community. Can't do it in isolation. And so if we're wanting to see change, it's going to require us to interact. And my philosophy is, don't we want to interact as good as possible? We want the least amount of issues keeping us from interacting well so that we can get to doing the work, whatever that may be in each of our lives. You know, people share and contribute to this work of healing the world in different ways. But it all starts with us individually. And so we now have the capacity to begin analyzing. What did I do? What did you do that created trauma for me? And then we're able to look at the responses. How did I respond? And did those responses, my behavior, I hit you upside your head. Ooh, I don't believe folks should put their hands on other folk, uninvited. But yet I did. Oh, then I created trauma for myself and probably for the other person. But if I'm working on healing, I'm working on my stuff. Yes, it has a residual, has an impact on others, but I'm working on my stuff because I'm the person I can heal. I'm the person I can heal, and I can heal me so that I can start doing less damage when I interact with you. And so by default, you get better too. But healing is always personal. We do it collectively. We come together and we support each other, but I can't do the healing work for nobody else. And unfortunately, on some days, nobody else can do it for me. If they could, we'd buy it. Can't buy it. Healing is one of those things that can't nobody do it for you. You can't buy it. Doesn't matter how much money you got. Doesn't matter how much clout or popularity you have. Nope, you can fake it, but it shows. For folks that are healing, they see. Like, oh, bless your little heart. Doing the best you can. Because that's the reality. We all doing the best we can. What we see, when you looking, they act in this kind of way. They doing their best. What you see is their best. Why are you surprised? This is the best they can do right now. Doesn't mean they're a totally bad person. I mean, they got issues. And when I'm not acting in ways that are loving, I got issues too. Please have grace with me, and I'll try to have some grace with you when I see your dysfunction showing up on the surface. So then Edward Bono says, though, once you begin to do that, then you're ready to start looking at the decisions. He calls it the green hat. But once you've looked at the mismatch of values between what someone else has done and what I have done too, because I'm usually a part of it. You go sideways on me, you hit an unhealed area and some insecurities, and I might go back on you. I hear him talking about giving them smoke. But if you're saying that, all you're doing is announcing that I'm getting ready to operate from my addiction of trauma. I'm getting ready to operate from my worst place. That's what that means. I'm going to bring you the smoke. What that means is you have done something that has violated my values. And in exchange, I'm going to do you one better. So we both going to be worse when we get done. It's like that video. There's a little girl. Children have so much wisdom. It's been going around the internet for a couple of years. And the kid says, you know, we got this no bullying rule, but this little kid keep bullying me and hit me. And finally, I was like, I had enough and hit him back. And then the little kid got in trouble because you're not supposed to hit. It's zero policy. And, you know, got in trouble. And the little kid was saying, well, I bet you won't hit me no more, but, you know, here's my philosophy. If you hit me, I have a black eye come Friday. If I have a black eye come Friday, you miss the special treats in the box. And this little kid says, but I got a better way of doing it. If you hit me and give me a black eye, I'm going to hit you. And neither one of us going to get no goodies out of the goodie box on Friday, but we both going to have black eyes there together. That's kind of how we do as adults. And it's dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional. So you do something that's causing me damage. And what I do then is I do something now because I'm mad at you for causing me damage. But I go do something now that's going to cause me damage. Because me responding to you from my ego is going to damage me. So you hurt me, so now I'm going to hurt me to get back at you. That's illogical. That's absolutely illogical. But if trauma is the addiction, and I believe it is, our behavior is our first line of defense, our first drugs of choice. I'll do stuff that ain't even in my best interest because I've gotten triggered. It makes us think in ways that are illogical. And Edward Bono says our problem is we don't know how to think. We do not know how to think. And look what it's got us. Look what it's, I mean, like society. I don't know where y'all live. I'm out of the United States now, living in Ecuador. But it's not too far removed. Society. Society does not think really good because our thinking has created the situations we're in. Does that make sense? Our thinking is the problem. When we operate from our trauma, from the place of our fears, our guilt, and our insecurity, what we're actually doing, if you really think about it, and you may have your other vocabulary, if you understand what happens, something happens to you, and I'm feeling fear, guilt, insecurity. It's a swirling of emotions, but they all come down to fear. Fear, guilt, insecurities. I start feeling that. So what I need to do is I need to throw some behavior in here that makes me not feel so afraid. If I'm feeling a little insecure, look at you with your little fuzzy hair. Oh, my hair ain't fuzzy. Defense. That may be one line. It's not. Laughter, humor. I make a joke now so you get off of me and don't make me feel so insecure. I'm feeling a little more in control. And then what happens is that behavior, that very behavior is a lie. No, I feel hurt. You talked about me and it hurt my feelings. Instead, I don't want to admit that. That's a lie. And so what I do is I pick up these behaviors, and if the behaviors don't work, I start adding substances to it. It's all for the same purpose. I don't want to feel out of control in this situation. So I'm going to get control by any means necessary, even if that means I need to pull out my pew-pew to resolve this disagreement that we having, or make you believe that I'm right, or make you do what I want you to do. And so part of it is as we do that, we get worse. Yeah, it's like somebody put in there the analogy about the snake. You think the snake has wronged you, and so you squeeze it tighter, 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 and it kills you. Kills you. That's what we're doing, literally. You do something to me, now I'm damaged. You ain't ever gonna get over on me like that before. I'm gonna put my defenses up. If I see you coming, I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna be ready for the fight. You come at me, I don't care what you got to say. I'm already got my defenses up. And so what happens is a new situation comes into your life that ain't got nothing to do with the old situation, but it reminds you of that old situation. And so you act as if you in that same kind of war. And we get worse and we get worse and we get worse and we get worse. And so part of the strategy, strategically, are we going to fix this or not? You're not happy with life? How you going to fix it? Well, they need to do something. Can you control any of these? Can you control them? Can you control any of the theys? Not usually. Not usually. You can't control anybody else. Can somebody control you? They can put you in a chokehold, make you say uncle. When they let go, you go back to what you're going to do. That hasn't influenced you except for in that moment. So part of this is about realizing if there's an issue happening, I'm the one that can get fixed. If somebody wants to join the conversation, send me a message and then I'll pull you in. If you've got something to add to the conversation. My skills aren't that good, so sometimes people get in and there's a rash of foreigners that'll come in or individuals that I can't understand. They speak in a language that doesn't match with mine. And then I have a problem trying to get them out of there and close them out. So if anyone wants to join, just send me a message. Those that come in and out, I've gotten 3 like real quick, but they all look like they're not really real people interested in having a conversation. So I'm kind of just dismissing those. But part of this is about how we then fix it. And so finding these people that are the shifters that are saying, here's a better way. You ain't got to believe me. Just try it. You don't have to believe me. Just try it. And so part of this is finding those things for me, because that's the kind of person I am. I don't just believe you because you said it's right. You said it's going to work. That was my issue with religion. Does it work? You know, are you getting joy and peace and all this? I don't see that in your life. So why are you trying to sell it to me? But these tools are tools that I have personally seen work. And then when I found Edward de Bonos, I was like, he's saying the same thing for a different group of people. He's saying the same thing. My healing protocol says, if you want to fix any issue in your life, here's the process. It's real simple. Now, if you come down and do the retreat, it costs you something to come down because I got facilities and all that. But if you want to heal, it's simple. It's on my page. I give you the step-by-step guide. First thing you do, what happened? Can you separate the facts from your judgment? What happened? Second thing I tell you to do is what's your feelings about that situation? Can you express your emotions? Can you tell yourself? Can you be honest? Are you willing to be honest with yourself about what really happened? And I have people do this in writing. Get your journal. What happened? What are the facts? Take one incident at a time. Because we're talking about one layer at a time. Take one layer at a time and deal with it. It's kind of like every time something happens, you put on a shirt and you try to get to this one way down deep, but you got to get to the other 5. I'm having like a rash of people like try to join in, and I know that they're not probably real people that's tied into the conversation. So definitely let me know if you want to come up and add something to this. But the first thing is take that situation. We're going to take one layer off at a time so we can get to some of the deeper layers if need be. What happened? Write the facts out. Be honest with your emotions. If you don't have the words, go get you one of those lists. Find a feeling wheel, find a feeling word list or an emotion list online. If you don't know what the words mean, go through there. And any words you don't understand, put a description. Because part of this is if you can't communicate what's going on, not even to yourself, how are you going to do it to somebody else? Communication breakdown before you even get started. So you first, what happened? And what are my emotions? Second thing, you've given time for your emotions to process. Now we start analyzing. What are the values that I agreed with? What are the values that conflicted with me in this situation? What were the values or expectations? And let me find the ones that didn't match up, were not my vibe. They did not align with my thinking. Find those areas, because that's where your trauma is. That's the ground zero. And then once you do that, what did I do in response? What was my behavior in response? When this situation happened, that's one thing. You may have done something that violated my values, but next, what did I do? How did I respond? Because I'm trying to learn something about me. How did I respond? What's my drugs of choice? What's my behavioral go-to? If it's insecurity that I see popping up, I felt insecure. I felt less worthy. Okay, great. What did you do? I didn't say anything. Or I ran and hid. Or I hung up the phone. I didn't want to talk about this anymore. Whatever your go-to is, you begin to see those patterns for yourself. And then what we do is we take that information. Now, from this step, I already know where you have conflicted with my values, and that has now created trauma. I also know how I responded. Then it's like, do you really want to be honest? Because now, what did you do? And let's take that and let's analyze that. Was there anything you did that was not loving, that didn't align with your values? You can see what they did to you. Now let's see what you did to you. Because see, we don't realize that sometimes we create the trauma in our own life. Anytime I do something, I don't care if I'm trying to get back at you. If I do something that goes against my values, I'm traumatizing me. So yes, I may have told you off, gave you a piece of my mind, but wait a minute, hold on. Sweetie, that's your own addiction happening. So you just punished yourself because you're trying to get back at somebody else. That's what you just did. Thought you was committed to working on you. Yeah. Thought you was committed to not doing no more damage to you. Yeah, but I needed to tell her, are you willing to tell her that at the expense of you being damaged? Choice. I don't have no judgment. I got to the point in my life where, so what you're saying is if I do stuff to somebody else, getting back at them, and it's something that I disagree with on a value level, even though I'm getting back at them, that is feeding my ego, and I'm actually making myself worse. So now I got more stuff I got to go work on. Healing is hard work. Looking at yourself honestly and dealing with your stuff, your garbage, is hard work. Why would I be adding more onto my plate that I got to then go heal from? Hold up. There's one person in this entire world that I can control, and that's me. Self. Your addiction is showing. Trauma is your addiction. It's showing. Because now you're doing stuff that's not even in your best interest. You're going to damage them. If that person was giving you issues, you damaging them is going to make them worse. But now you're going to have more issues. Does that make any sense? That doesn't make no sense. That's illogical. That's why I believe trauma works like addiction. It's not logical. I will do stuff in my own detriment to keep myself from feeling the fear or the insecurity, or to feel more in control when those things make me feel out of control. And then once you've had the time to look at the part of my damage that someone else has caused and the part of my damage that I have caused, then it's time to have the real honest conversation. If I was going to treat myself like I love myself, now, what kind of conversation would I have with myself? Self. How much longer are we going to keep the damaging ourselves? Self. We're going to make some changes. Self. We're going to get better at keeping our word to take care of ourselves. Self. Dear Lorana, this is progress because you didn't cuss her out and hit upside the head. That's progress. But self. We're on a journey here and we're trying to get better. And if self, we're the one doing the stuff that makes us not better, self, are we really, really, really ready for change? But it's having that conversation once you have cleaned up your perspective. And that's what Edward de Bono was talking about. If we start and our perspective's all screwed up, we can't ever get right. And he said, what's wrong with society is we can't think right. And what Jesse Collins and Bono help us do is, well, if I ain't thinking right, I know that if I get triggered, I'm gonna be in a frame of mind that I ain't really trying to hear none of that. Thinking right now, I see fire. I see red. They said, well, if we give you a framework so that anytime you realize you're getting swirled into that motion, we can give you a formula, for a framework for how to think through this in a way that'll heal you. Can you learn how to think? And part of what Edward de Bono and his work, the Six Thinking Hats, the thinking course that he does, he began to realize, hot damn, we actually can learn how to think better. And if we can learn how to think better and we can think in ways that bring us healing, we got a fighting chance. We have a chance of changing. We have a chance of transforming community. And in my work of building physical community, how do we build physical community? And I started thinking, what if we started with people? We know how to do housing. We know how to do food. We know how to do cooperative economics. We know how to do that work of transforming our systems. But what'll stand in the way every time is people. What if we, this is just a strategist, a solutionist. They used to call us futurists, people that predicted the future, and solutionist feels better. What if we started with people? What if people began to think better? And what if them thinking better actually began healing them of the issues that kept them dysfunctional in the past? And what if we then took those people and built community with those people? Would they be able to interact well? And what we found out was yes. As I began healing, as I began thinking better, I began doing less damage to myself. I began doing less damage to myself. Nobody else was changing. But I stopped doing stuff that was damaging me so often. Perfection ain't the goal. Progress is. I stopped doing some of those things that was damaging me. I was traumatizing myself. Could I deal with the stuff that other people were doing? No, but I could learn to set better boundaries. I've learned. If we do not share the same value, I need to set boundaries. If I believe I should be treated with respect and you don't, are we going to potentially have a problem? Yep. How do we know? Usually something happens. We haven't had the conversation and all of a sudden you do something and I feel disrespected. We got a problem. Boundaries, my definition of boundaries. Boundaries are the fences, the gates, and the walls that I put up when people do not share my values so that I can continue to love myself and with whatever energy I have left, love them too. If you believe that you have the right to disrespect me and I don't, if you come into my space and disrespect me, I will be traumatized because that conflicts with my values. Can I control you? Nope. But once I understand that we do not share the value in that way, if I don't want to be traumatized by you or triggered by you, because you behaving that way with me may hit one of my unhealed spots and I'll be triggered and I'll be acting out of my ego, then what I need to do is set boundaries. I say, I can choose whether you have access to me or not. And I only want to give you access if we share these values, and one of those is treating me with respect. Now, can I tell if you respect me or not? No, because I'd have to read your mind. It's not you have to respect me. No, but you do have to treat me with respect. Because if you don't, I can't control you and make you treat me with respect, but I can take away your access to me. Matter of fact, if I'm taking care of myself, I'm obligated to do that. Oh, this person keeps coming into your space and disrespecting you and you get traumatized by this situation. Could you do a better job of taking care of yourself next time? Put a boundary. If they start that, you say, oh, no. This is going to create trauma for me. So no. I'm sorry, I must remove access. And that may mean me leaving or asking you to leave. But that then becomes the responsibility I take on if I'm going to take care of myself well. And I think that's our first responsibility. As an adult, no one's obligated. I don't care if you got a spouse or a partner, they're not obligated to take care of you or to be concerned about your best interests. They volunteer for that role. But you are absolutely obligated to take care of yourself. You're the one responsible for you. Even if others volunteer to take on some of the responsibilities, you may have a partner who cares and chooses to be concerned for you, who chooses to share some of the financial responsibilities of life with you, who chooses to be concerned about your needs as well as their own. But even if they do all of those things, it does not take away the responsibility that you absolutely have to take care of you. And so it's about learning better ways to do that. And man, it starts with thinking. That's what Edward de Bono says. That's what Lorana says. It starts with thinking, because if your thinking is messed up, talk to somebody whose thinking's off in left field. I have that talk sometimes with people who want to talk philosophical. They want to talk religion, or they want to talk faith or spirituality or sustainable community and what it's going to take to fix society. And they want to have these philosophical talks. And they start talking and I'm like, woo, we ain't on the same value page. I'm sorry. Because you got a value that says, we can treat folk any kind of disrespectful way we want to. That ain't going to work. We know how that works in society. Like, if we're being strategic and if we're being honest, how does that work? It ain't working for us. Ain't that what we've been doing? So you're going to keep doing it and think it's going to work out? No. So part of this is, what if we began building community and we started with people first? People first. Yeah, housing, close second, but what if we started with people first? What if we began to look at our values to make sure that it was not our values creating trauma in society? Because I think if we approach from that perspective, we get transformation. We get change that's lasting change. We get change that fixes and heals. But if we keep doing what we've been doing, we know what we're going to get. More. That's it. And so it's just about choice. I don't have to make a judgment. Is that good or bad? I don't have to make a judgment. Is American society bad? I don't know. I don't know if it's bad for you. It's good for me. There were a lot of parts of it that were good. Yeah, there were some parts that sucked, but there were a lot of parts that were good. I had relative freedom and independence. I was self-employed. I could do what I wanted to do a lot of times. But there's some things that just did not fit anymore. Didn't. How much time I was going to have to spend working didn't fit anymore. It did not jive with my inner sha-na-na. It said,